Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2022 RBC Canadian Open. This is my preview show with a focus on the betting side, but we're going to do all that deep dive analysis on the course, on all the stroke gain information. I'm going to give you my custom stat models. I'm going to give you my rankings for each stroke gain area. And then, of course, I'm going to tell you some of my favorite bets. Going to give you my long shot. And with all that said, thank you for stopping by, and hey, let's go talk some golf. Okay, so the first thing I want to remind you that I do have a giveaway going on for the US Open at the Country Club. And what is it you say? I am giving away 5 winners, $100 each, randomly. And all you need to do to get in this giveaway is subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, hit that like button and tell me in the YouTube comments below, who do you think is going to win the US Open? If you've already gave me your comments and told me who you're going to pick for last week's shows, please, just one entry just makes my life a lot easier. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Memorial real quickly. It was like two different worlds that kind of took place, right? So it started off Thursday, all was looking great. I gave you guys my 5 first-round leaders, and I hit 3 of them. So if you jumped on those, which some of you guys did tweet out and tell me that you jumped on, I think, K.H. Lee. But yeah, I picked K.H. Lee, which was 90-1, Cameron Young and Cam Smith. I think Cameron Young was like 45-1 and Cam Smith was like 35-1. But because there was 3 others, 6 total, it, as I kind of explained to you guys for first round leaders, it chops down the winnings quite a bit. But it was still a nice start to put a little money away already just after first round leaders. Also, it was a great start from the pick side. I picked Cam Smith, I picked Cameron Young. I don't think I picked Riley, but I picked Will Z. And I think that's it. Maybe I did have Davis Riley. It doesn't matter. But even from a DFS perspective, things were looking great. And then, of course, Hideki Matsuyama, who was already 3 over after 9 holes. So it wasn't looking amazing for him anyways, but gets DQ'd because, he put some, it looks like whiteout paint on his driver to show when he lines up, he could easily look down and is for alignment, is how I understood it. But I guess because some of that paint was on the face, which I guess could alter how the ball flies, hence he was DQ'd. Now, I guess, they talked about this in length, that they could put marker on the top of the club or whatever, and it would have been fine. But also the guy doesn't speak English, so you think, hey, well, very little English. They would have gave him a bit of a break. But that was the first time he's ever been DQ'd from a tournament, and it was kind of shocking. And it literally from there kind of sent me spiraling downhill from a DFS side. Because I only put 15 lineups in the big game, and he was in, I think, half of them, so I just kind of killed half right off the bat. And then out of nowhere, of course, on Saturday, Billy Horschel decides to go shoot a round of his lifetime, and I didn't get to watch a lot on Saturday, so I was pretty shocked when I did tune in to find out that Billy Horschel is, now the leader at 13 under, and I felt like it kind of came out of nowhere. And what I mean by that is, for that day, let's take a look at here. So, of course, this is what he did very well. He only at that time, I think he ended up with 2 bogeys total for the tournament. It was kind of ridiculous compared, as you saw, there was guys just blowing up left and right. And Sunday was a disaster. I actually did pretty good from a showdown perspective on Sunday and Thursday. Also, the other 2 days weren't that great for me. And overall, it was pretty close to a push from a financial side. So I'm not complaining. It was just, I'm a big fan of Billy Ho. A lot of people don't like playing Billy Horschel, but if you guys have been with me for a while, know that, I picked him for the PGA. I picked him for the Charles Schwab. I picked him for the WGC Dell Match Play, and I hit him last year for that. If you want to look at, this is what I always kind of do. If somebody kind of comes off a little bit where I was not expecting, and this is why, you could see, he missed a cut at the Charles Schwab, which that didn't help. And if you heard his after interview, that was a big change for him that kind of reset him and, really kind of got him focused for the Memorial, whatever. But he also did not have that greatest showing at the PGA Championship. RBC Heritage, I think I picked him there too because it's actually a pretty good fit for him. But I just felt like the Memorial is just kind of a bigger boy course and, really demands. But what I also learned is that, and I kind of forgot this a little and I had to remember, is that Jack's courses that he builds, Jack was a fader of the ball. Yes, he could work it both ways, but he liked to fade the ball off the tee. And a lot of his courses are set up for the fade. And if you saw Billy Horschel, he is a pure, likes to fade the ball off the tee like a Berger. Daniel Berger also did well there. I just thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, there was, I was all over him. You can see this is start of the year. Great showing at the Farmers. He was ball striking the crap out of it for a while. I thought his win would come probably in Florida on Bermuda. And I really think I felt like the RBC Heritage, but I stuck with him, especially at the Charles Schwab. I just feel like he's more of a shorter track, very strategic. But he also on Saturday, what I did get to watch some of the coverage after the fact. I mean, what he chip in twice, he was draining, 40 footers. I mean, you could see around the green, he gained 5.2 strokes. Putting, he gained 4. I mean, he did everything. I mean, we'll look at the top like 10 guys from a stroke game perspective. He was far and above the rest of the field. This was his tournament history. Now, funny enough, like I said, I kind of skipped over Billy Horschel. He was just out of sight, out of mind after picking him twice. Top 10 for my picks and then top 15 the next. And then he also doesn't have the greatest record here. Now, it's not terrible. He had a 9th, a 13th, 11th, a 15th. I mean, that's a long time ago. But he also had a couple missed cuts, and his most recent was a 67th. So, again, really nothing. And a lot of people, they're going to try to say now that they were all over Billy Horschel. I like you guys. I like to listen to some other opinions. I heard nobody out there that was touting Billy Horschel. Now, I'm sure someone put a random bet on him. I think he was 60, 66 to 1, something like that. All right, so if you want to look at what the top 10 to 15 guys did in the tournament very well, we were dead on. I mean, I said you had to be around the green, putting, and approach. And he did that very well. You could see total strokes gained, like I said, far and above anybody else at almost 18. The next one was Aaron Wise, which was, was the highest pick that I had if you go by standings. Max Homa was a pick, Will Z, Brennan Steele, and Cameron Smith. Now, before Sunday, of course, we had Cameron Young was up there. Of course, even, Cam Smith was leading or was right behind going into Sunday. Johnny Vegas, who shot 9 over on us. I mean, if you played Showdown Finale for Sunday, literally it was hard to put a team together without having a guy that shot 5 to 9 over. I mean, it was difficult. So anyways, you can kind of see Sahith Theegala showed up again. He had a really nice, what was that, Friday, that moved him up the leaderboard. The guys up top, I mean, there's some, but, he had to be really good in all facets. And off the tee still shows that, Billy Horschel gained, you had Cantlay and Neiman, but I mean, 0.8, 0.3, 1.4. That's, who gained strokes against the field, off the tee. It wasn't as predominant as we see at some tracks. So I feel good that, I was on with where I was going. It was just very volatile on how the guys played, up one day. And then, like I said, Rahm and Cantlay, the first couple days, I felt like they almost didn't make the cut. Like I felt really good about fading those guys. Now, yes, they moved up. Of course, Rory McIlroy was another pick of mine who moved down on Sunday. And then you had those two guys move up. But for a long time, it looked like they were going to be a non-factor. And that's not what killed me. It was more of just not being on Billy Horschel. And then if I had thrown in a Joaquin Neiman, I was not on Joaquin. All right. So overall, I give myself a grade of, I don't know, C+. I did not have the winner. And could have definitely used some more. But I think I had, out of my top 15, 14 of the 15 made the cut. And then Hideki, if you count that, there's nothing I could do about that. It'd have been 13 out of 15. And then I think out of my cheapies, 3 out of the 5 made it to the weekend. I think Streelman missed a cut. I can't think of the other guy that I picked down. Oh, Stuart Sink blew up on Friday. But the rest did fine. Vegas, like I said, one time was right up there. I had Steele, and I'm going to forget the other guy. Okay, I think for me, that's enough. I mean, funny enough, there's certain tournaments that I'm always very excited about and know exactly who I want to bet on even before I look at any data. The Memorial for me has always been kind of iffy because it's kind of like a major where it demands the top guys. And honestly, I don't like betting, 10 to 1 odds. I'm not going to do it. You guys know that about me. All right, let's move on here. We are heading over Northland to Toronto, Canada. And it is the Canadian Open, which, has been kind of skipped for the last couple of years. We had the Palmetto last year that took its place. And then I think they just totally write it up. I don't think it was the Workday Charity Open that took its place. It doesn't matter. It hasn't been played. But it was supposed to be at the St. George's Golf and Country Club back in 2020. And so finally it's getting it. Of course, just make sure you're not thinking of Royal St. George's where they just played the Open the previous year. Total different track, and that's in Europe. This course has been around forever. Opened back in 29. It was actually named something different now. I forgot. Royal something. It actually it's hosted, I think, 4 or 5 Canadian Opens. The last one would have been 2010. And I guess this Stanley Thompson does a lot of golf course architecture design in the Canadian area. I've never heard of him, but hey, it is what it is. It is a par 70, but typically for the members, plays as a par 71. So they took one of the par 5s and actually made it a par 4, so a long par 4. And it's coming in just a little over 7,000 yards in distance. The fairways are, and this did come from the superintendent's information, so the fairways are a mix of a bent POA, and then this rough sounds like it is going to be pretty fierce, like a little bit like we just saw at 3.5 inches right now, Kentucky bluegrass. And I did think I heard my one of my fellow compadres, Mr. Mayo, state that they're POA greens. They are not. They are bent grass, creeping bent grass to be specific. So make sure you got that note. And if you want to, while I'm thinking of it, if you go to the PGA Tour on their website, you can walk hole through hole, but you're not. It's going to look a lot of same. It's going to be a lot of trees, a lot of bunkers, and elevated smaller greens. So that is your kind of quick course breakdown. It is a full player field, so for the last couple tournaments, we've been at 120. We are now at 156 players. What does that mean? It's going to be harder to get a 6-6 through on DFS, and of course, it's cut to T65 in ties. Historical cut line, we don't really know, right? I mean, it's a new venue, at least, well, newer from last 12 years that we've seen an event played here. But if I had to guess, it's going to fall somewhere from even to 2 under is where I think the cut will fall. And then if you do leverage the past tournaments, all the way back 2019, where Rory, just boat raced these guys on Sunday, shooting a 61 at Hamilton. He shot 2,200 to win that. And then you had Glenn Abbey, who was there for a couple of years running. 2018, DJ shot 23 under, won that one. And then you had the Johnny Vegas back-to-back 2017, 2016 at 21 under, and then 12 under, which I think that was still at Glen Abbey. I think it was just weather conditions. I mean, I'll be dead honest with you. I don't even remember watching a Canadian Open in like I said, it's been a few years since we've seen it there. I've watched them, but it's been so long, I don't remember a whole lot. You do have smaller than average greens here. They're 4,000 square feet. So last week was 5,000 square feet. I mean, this is getting into kind of like RBC Harbor Town size or even Pebble Beach. There is a ton of sand here. There's 104 sand bunkers. You've got really just one water hazard, and it's this creek that winds through a couple holes. It says 3 holes are in play. Technically, it's 3 or 2 holes in play. That's actually where you could fly it into the water. So I'll show you that on the course map. The stent meter reading, what these things are running at is 12. So if you think about what we just saw, that was 13 to 14 on the stent meter. So they're still fast, but not crazy fast. And I'm going to start doing this, especially for when we don't know the course, acres of fairways. What this will tell us is I can look at other comparable courses and understand how much they've allocated to the fairway, which tells us, are they wider fairways or narrow fairways? And this one is a little more narrower. And we'll talk about some of the comparable courses going forward that match up very similar to this. Your course defense, I kind of mentioned quite a bit of it, but you got small greens, they're elevated. You've got thick, tough rough, especially if there's dew in the morning or they get a little rain, it's going to be harder. Of course, you got the tree line, and they're pretty narrow fairways from what I see and what this is telling me from the acres of fairway. It's very similar to Colonial, where we just watched the Charles Schwab from a fairway perspective and the trees and how it plays. You got a ton of sand bunkers, I already mentioned. And then even in some of this area within the sand, they have like this tall fescue. So if you hit it in there, you're in big, big trouble. I think I mentioned there's runoffs. Of course, there's weather now. We're not like on Lake Ontario. So I don't expect a ton of wind, but who knows? It's weather. And then they also have some really long par 4s. They got some short ones, but they also have some really long par 4s. We'll go through the scorecard to break that down. And also 5 par 3s, and I believe 4 of them are over 200. So I see those being part of the course defense. And then I don't have a ton of notes because, like I said, it's been forever since an RBC Open. And but if you want a couple things, course record was set by Carl Peterson back in the 2010 Canadian Open. He shot a 60 there. And in 2014, so this would have been after that, all the greens were reconstructed to go back to the original, I guess, profile. So even if we had some guys that played this way back in 2010 and you literally wanted to go off that data, which would be crazy. But if you did, well, these greens have actually are pretty much all different since then. So you can pretty much chuck it all out the window. Okay, so if you want to see kind of the flow or the map of this course, what I will highlight, you can see just trees line everything. And there's some areas where if you get into trees, you can get out. And there's some areas, if you hit it in there, you could pull the Kevin Na and have like 20 strokes in there before you get it out. So it is going to be imperative that you hit fairways, and you're going to, hopefully we can find guys that hit fairways with distance. Hence Rory at Hamilton when he just went nuts. These are the holes 12, 13, 14 where water does run in. So if you look at 14, there is the ability that could affect maybe, I don't know, not so much your drive, but maybe your approach. 12 is why I said there's only like 2 holes. I mean, you really would have to get wayward off the tee to get in this, water. But 13, there is water in front of this par 3. So, but nothing. It's really more about, getting up and down from sand and keeping it in the fairways. And you're going to have to be really good on approach with these very tiny greens, or really good out of the sand. All right, and so this is the scorecard. We'll go through it real quickly, but I did mention this is the hole number 4 that typically the members play as a par 5. So that has turned into a par 4, which made this into a par 70, which is it's kind of weird that we have 5 par 3s and 3 par 5s. So par 5s, everything that I see, they should still be able to go pretty low at this course. I don't see anything really cause too many issues. Like I said, you've got these short par 4s, and then you'll get a long par 4, and then you got a long par 3, and then a long par 4. And then we'll call that kind of medium par 4. A really short par 3, again, a medium par 4, a long par 3, and then a very gettable. So one thing that we're going to look at is eagles, because there's all the par 5s are very gettable for these guys that you should have no problems. It should be driver iron on 2 of these. You got a 538 and a 528. Also, what I noticed, if you're playing showdown, which I do quite a bit of, you're going to want to get the guys off the first tee to get that birdie consecutive streak, because you've got, should be a birdie or eagle here, a really short par 4, and then another short par 5. So for sure you're going to lose strokes to the field if you're not making a birdie on 9 and 11. And if you get 10, then there you go. There's that extra 5 points. So you might want to put that as a note when you're picking your showdown. And now that I said that, everybody probably will on showdown will be doing that. Then we go to 12. Again, short par 4, long par 3, long par 4. Still gettable, right? I mean, these guys are hitting at 310, 315. So you're still be able to reach that with a hybrid, maybe max out a 3-wood. Then another long par 3, long par 4, and long par 4. So the last couple holes, I didn't look at the handicap ratings, but it looks like the last 2 finishing holes are maybe 2 of the tougher on here. All right, and then just one quick visual. I'm not going to pull a bunch up for you. You can kind of see, just oodles of sand protecting these greens. There's a bit in the fairways, but nothing like what they did. Every green that I saw, they've got it just covered in. Again, average size is 4,000 square feet. That's pretty small greens. And then again, you can see this tree-lined area, man. If you get in there, and depending on which area, like here, you have a chance to get out. Here, it's going to be very difficult. And again, like I said, if you want even a better understanding, I didn't look on YouTube to see if there was a flyover, but if you go to the PGA Tour site, you can literally walk hole through hole. All right, so with all that said, how are we going to pick the guys with the right skill set to win this thing? And so as always, I break down a stroke gain analysis ranking. And again, if you are a little newer to this, stroke gain analysis is guys that are gaining strokes against their competitors in this tournament in the field. And so the number one thing is ball striking. What is that? That is taking off the tee and approach into one correlation, which is a good one because it typically, you always want really good ball strikers. I can't think of a course that you probably don't. So that's number one. I'm going to go with approach because of these really small greens. And there's also, you can see my procs to my pins that I am taking an educated guess that are going to be the ones that would be the highest. So we're going to have that in. So we're kind of almost tripling down on approach here because that's a bit of ball striking, and also I've got it 2 proximity of the pins. I want distance. I was kind of in between good drives, and what is good drives? It's guys that hit the fairway or the intermediate and then hit the green on their next shot. But I want a little bit of distance, but I also am going to bring in that fairways and regulation. So guys, even off the tee takes in fairways and regulation, but I kind of doubling down and bringing that in. Ton of sand. You know, I'm not worried about around the green here so much as I am this. Are you good out of the sand? Because if you're not on this green, it looks like everything I could see that pretty good odds you're going to be in the sand. Putting is always, you know, it's hard to predict, but we're going to take a look at the guys who can putt on bent greens. And then the two proximities, doing some math off these yardages for each hole. It looks like the 100 to 125 is going to be heavily used, and 125 to 150, which makes sense if you even go look at Hamilton, which is pretty similar, where they played this the prior 2019. Those were the proximity pins that kind of stood out also. And I mentioned you got 5 par 3s here, but 4 of them are pretty long, 200 to 225. So I'm going to bring that into the model. You got 6 par 4s. I think there's 9 total, but 6 par 4s that are longer in length. So I want to see who does well on those. 450 to 500. That brings in your ball strikers. And then, yeah, you got to be able to get who's taking advantage of these par 5s. 500 to 550. There's 3 of them. And then eagles. I see at least 2 opportunities to make eagles here, minimum. And of course, when I do the picks, you'll get to see who's doing well on the birdie side also. Oh, and then I threw this in there. I don't put a lot of weight on it, but this is 2019 out of Hamilton. What did the top guys do? And I do think it's not a bad competitive or comp, the Hamilton Country Club, but I don't think it's the end all be all. But I'll just kind of highlight that. No shocker, that approach around the green and putting really stood out more than I've ever seen. So it also lends me to be it was a bit of a putting contest, right? When you see the guys that won are gaining 6 strokes, 9, 7, 8, 7. That's pretty rare that the top 5 guys gain that much there. And then you can see it wasn't so much off the tee. I mean, Rory blitzed him off the tee, but here, it wasn't so much about that. Approach, yeah, I wouldn't say it's overwhelming, but it's, and around the green was kind of But man, it was a putting festivus. All right, so with that said, of course, I created a custom stat model for you. It's what I'm using, and I'm sharing it with you guys. And what this is, of course, is I've got no filters turned on, and I am also good news is, which is usually rare, you can see the odds here on what these guys are right now. I think it's like an average. I'll talk to you a few about the bets that I'm making and where you can get better odds at. Of course, you can always use Odds Checker. I think there's even Odds Shopper out there. There's a few of them. But anyways, let's go over my model. So I've got ball striking at 10%, approach weighted heavily at 25, off the tee at 10. I want fairways gained at 10. So really, that's a 20% put down on driving. So, if you take this, it's over 50% of the model weighting. I got to put putting in there because we don't want just total sieves. I got sand saves at 10%, which is pretty unique for me. But there's so much sand here, I think it is going to be a bit of something we want to factor in. Those 2 proximities I mentioned already at 5%. The par 3s, the par 4s, the par 5s, and the eagles all at 5%. So that's kind of how the weighting went. And then this is looking at the last 12 rounds or 3 tournaments. And if you click on my rank, of course, no shocker, Rory McIlroy over the last 3 tournaments has led in this whole field. You got Lowry, Corey Connors, who, of course, is probably a betting and play favorite, everything. You got Burns showing up again to see if he can win his, 4th, 5th tournament now? Scotty Scheffler, you got JT, Kirk, Smalley, Munoz, Smith, Fitzpatrick, Gucheski, Varner, Long, and Lashley are your top 15 guys over 12 rounds who come up. And side note, for the RBC Canadian Open, it's a really strong field compared to what I was expecting. So that's good to see. And then I also like to do this, give you a little bigger sample. It's still recent form, but this is the past 6 tournaments now. So we were looking at 3 tournaments. Now we're taking in 6 tournaments of data against that same model, weighting, everything. Corey Connors pops up to 1, which makes total sense. Kirk, Lowry, McIlroy, Scheffler, JT, Fitzy, Tony Finau. That's a little interesting. Burns, Canadian, Adam Hadwin, CT Pan, Sebastian Munoz, Nate Lashley, Lipsky, and my man Austin Smotherman kind of rounds out the top 15 if you take a little larger data sample. All right, now we want to just focus on the ball strikers. Again, no filters. Looking at 6 tournaments or 24 rounds. And your top ball strikers, again, this is tee to green, is Rory, Lowry, Scheffler, Connors, Finau, JJ Spawn, Fitzpatrick, JT, Luke List, Cam Smith, Doug Gim, Chris Kirk, Austin Smotherman, Sam Burns, and CT Pan are your top ball strikers in the field. And then if you're interested in on who putts the best on bent grass right now over the last, I think a bigger sample, last 36 rounds, which would equal, what do I say, 9 tournaments. You got Brendan Todd, who, made a nice run at the Charles Schwab. It really hurt that he didn't win that. I'm not going to lie. I think it was 130 to 1. Now look at his odds, 66 to 1. So he lost quite a bit on Brendan Todd. You got Snedeker up there. You got Rory, Johnson, Wagner. Don't worry about that one. Cam Smith, Noss, Chambers, Hughes, Perez, Mitchell. RCB's in the field. Really good iron player. Usually, they had a ton of success on the European tour. It just never came over here. It reminds me a ton of like Emiliano Grillo, where he was, very accurate off the tee, really good iron player, just could not putt. And you got Burns, Shank, Poston, and Hubbard from a putting perspective. All right, I call this the Iron Man. Who's the best iron player right now over the last 6 tournaments? And this is purely just looking at approach over the, like I said, over the last 6 tournaments. You got Scheffler, Lowry, Smith, McIlroy, Burns, CT Pan, Connors, HV3, Finau, Spawn, your Valero Texas champion, JT, Mr. Lipsky, who came off, what was it? It was the European tour, I think. I think he did a stint on the Corn Ferry too, but starting to actually show some life. He, played very well down in the lower tours, and now it's starting to pop up. You got Terrell Hatton, interesting play. I think he could be kind of interesting from a betting side. You got the Canadian Nick Taylor, and then you got my Luke Donald, who I've been giving you guys as your kind of free bingo square at the 6,000 to get you those crazy lineups up top to get you that cut. And now let's go look at the proximity of the pins on each of these guys. So if you want to know who's the best from 100 to 125, I think that's going to be a very key proximity. Again, Smith, Todd, Lipsky, Piercy. That's kind of interesting. Villagegas. Thomas Shank, Ricky Barnes. Don't play him. Greg Chalmers. Don't play him. Smalley, Smotherman, Kirk. Gucheski, which is kind of interesting. That guy actually shows up. Then you got the Canadian Mike Weir, which I didn't even know. I didn't go that far that he was in the field, but it makes total sense. And then you got Benny Martin. I think Mike Weir, I don't know, he won on the senior tour not too long ago. I mean, it wasn't super recent. I'm a huge fan of Mike Weir. That shows you how far I go back. But love the Canadians and the lefty when he won the Masters. That was awesome. Okay, now to the 125 to 150. You got Mateus Schwab. You got Sammy Ryder, who I always kind of like is a possible first-round leader bet. You got the Sabatini, also could go low. Fratelli, Connors, Rose, Justin Lauer, McIlroy, Scheffler, Hearn, Shank, Thomas, Armour, Hadwin, and Weir. Of course, you got a couple Canadians there at the end. Be your top 15 approach players from 125 to 150. All right, I call this the Canucks in the field. If you play hockey or if you know the Canadians, hey, that's a hockey team, and it's not a bad name to call. I don't think they mind being called a Canuck. But I'm missing, Fantasy National is missing Taylor Pendrith. Also, I didn't even go down that far to see Michael Weir. But here's some of the top Canadians in the fields. If you're interested, I like, this is kind of my narrative. When we would go to the Mexico Open, I kind of mentioned this, or back in the days of WGC Mexico, the guys that are from that area typically do well. They really want to have a good showing. Now, you could look at it both ways. I mean, you could look at like Corey Connors with, a lot of these guys, but really Corey Connors is kind of carrying that Canadian flag as their best golfer right now, as far as I'm concerned. Hence, the odds show that. And he's only got the one win right at the Valero. So I think he would just love. Now, you could flip that around and be like, is he going to have too much pressure? Is he going to be dealing with, trying to get free tickets and yada, yada, yada. But I'm betting a lot of these guys, and I'll probably, build quite a few lineups with these guys. So you got Corey Connors leads off, and my Adam Svensson is number 2, and I've already got a bet. We'll talk about him. You got Nick Taylor, Adam Hadwin, Mackenzie Hughes, Sloan, and Glickich are your Canadians, except Weir and Pendrith. I don't know why Taylor Pendrith is not in Fantasy National yet. Hopefully he gets in there soon. Now, I always tell you guys, last week, my comp courses I did not like. This week, I really like my comparable courses. I will be leveraging this heavily on what's going to influence my DFS picks and even a little bit on what I like from an odds. Now, there's going to be some names that pop in here that we don't have to worry about, but we do have a lot of good. So we don't have course history here we can use. So we got to go off comp course. And there's a lot of good comp courses we can leverage. Like Colonial, Charles Schwab, it's the par 70. We just saw it. it's bent greens, it's trees, and then even the size of their fairways is dead on, 24 acres of fairways. So I like that one. I also think now that the problem is TPC Deer Run. Well, this field is not. It's really like top heavy, and then it's kind of like everybody else. So yeah, we can use the John Deere Classic. I think a lot of these guys that we're seeing here playing that. Same thing. Tree line. I believe it's a 70 or 71. Like 71, 7,200 yards, bent greens. And then you got TPC River Highlands where they play the Travelers, which they play every year. Same thing, kind of the par 70, tree line, bent greens. So these three are the top that I would use. And then, of course, I did throw in the Hamilton from 2019 in here too. And then these are all Bermuda over here, but I think they're all really good comparable. Same thing, side of the fairways. They got the trees, they got the smaller greens. So you got Harbor Town, you got TPC Southwind, you got the Seaside Course, and then you got Wailea, which and like I said, it's funny. Like either we play the bomber courses or we play these, and all these kind of fit into the same. With all that said, if you look at the last 6 tournaments on these tracks, your number one comes out Corey Connors, which makes total sense. You got HV3, who's had really good showings at the RBC and then had a good showing at the Schwab. You got the Svensson, who I think is really interesting from a betting side. You got Lowry. Now, Charlie Hoffman, if you've been watching golf, do not play him. His game is broken right now. Now, again, he could pop, but what I've seen is, best case, he pops for 1 round and then he's trashed the rest. So be very cautious if you're going on there. I think Vaughn Taylor's a sneaky bet and play. You got Justin Thomas, Rory, Ryan Moore, who did, funny enough, he kept coming up in the models last week for the Memorial, and lo and behold, he made the cut. Now, he didn't do shit over the weekend. Then you had Doug Gim, same thing, where I think it was on Friday or Saturday. He went off. I think he had like 7 or 8 birdies, and it was total trash the rest. Cameron Percy, he'll get you a cut. Chris Kirk makes total sense. He would be a good play. Munoz. Grillo, this is probably a little bit on the pass of his game. Not as bad as Charlie Hoffman. He's actually made some cuts and showed a little bit of life. And then, of course, Luke List has been playing really good golf and, again, was up there even after day 2 in the leaderboard. And then, like a lot of guys, fell apart on Sunday. And then I wanted to take a little larger sample off these courses for you. I think I almost like this one a little better. This is taken, again, 9 tournaments. So pretty much the whole season. But, I mean, some of these courses they haven't played till last year. But again, Corey Connors does not move against my model. He stays right there. Then you got Rory comes up, Lowry, HV3, again, Vaughn Taylor. I have not bet him, but I might just throw a little sneaky bet on him. Scotty Scheffler, Svensson, Ryan Moore, JT, Grillo, Munoz, Reed, Percy, Rose. Could be an interesting DFS play. I don't think I'd want to bet him. Maybe a top 10 or something. And then Chris Kirk. It's funny as everybody was on Chris Kirk for the Charles Schwab, and I'll be curious if he does not get enough attention for this course, which I think it's a perfect course fit for him. All right, with that said, I mentioned, I don't know, a lot of you guys probably don't know, but I played hockey growing up, coached it, actually played Division I for a year at a school called Fair State University, and that was a long time ago. But hockey and golf are my 2 favorite sports, so I thought this slide was awesome that this tournament, they got the goalie helmets. I don't know if they'll have them this year, but this was a few years back. But even for like around the tee box, they have the hockey boards that people kind of stand around. So there's some cool things. They bring the hockey element into this. I like that a lot. But with all that said, my favorite bets is, and again, I want to always preference this, that these are not my only bets, and these aren't the bets that I think for sure are going to win. These are the guys that I think are good odds and have a chance to also win the tournament. Okay. So with that preference, of course, HV3, been just waiting to break through on the PGA Tour. Now, yes, I know he won in Australia. And yes, I know he went over in Saudi or whatever, but he's still not technically won on a PGA sanctioned tournament. So he's 40-1. Now that is at PointsBet. Draftkings has him at 22-1. So it's worth it. I mean, that's almost 20 points. So I actually, my first bet was on DraftKings. I cashed that out and went to PointsBet. All the rest of these are on DraftKings and are the best odds that I could find. Right now, you got Johnny Vegas. I mentioned, now this is not the same course, but man, something about him playing in Canada. His only 2 wins, as far as I know, off the top of my head, are at the RBC Canadian Open. So 70-1, why not? Let's. And he's been in good form, but fell apart Sunday at the Memorial, like a lot of guys did. You've got Taylor Pendrith on DraftKings Sportsbook 2 at 140-1. Now we haven't seen him in a while. He was also, I think, on my cover, right? So I really like him. He's got a great game. He's had good success on these shorter tracks, even though he's crazy long off the tee. But he can manage the shorter, more technical tracks. I guess he had a rib injury, if I remember correctly. And this is his first tournament back. Now, we don't know how healthy he is. You know, a few bucks at 141. Why not? And then, of course, you got Mac Hughes, another Canadian, right? I'd say maybe second or third, maybe behind Hadwin. He's 80 to 1. And then last but not least, you got Nick Taylor, another Canadian. He won at a very kind of similar course, Pebble Beach. Very small green, short track. Now, you know, that's a little more wide open, does it have the trees, but they do play Monterey, right? Which is probably a really pretty good comp for this. The problem is we don't get stroke gain data when they go over to Monterey, when they do like the 3-course rotation, whatever. But he's 130 to 1. And he showed up, the Charles Schwab, I think it was on Friday. He had a really nice round, but then didn't do anything, I think, on the weekend. Again, if memory serves me right. And just to let you know, of course, I bet Corey Connors. I bet all the Canadians. All right. And then my long shot, you probably might have already guessed this. I've used him for a long shot before, but I got to do it again. Of course, he's 250 to 1 to win, and he's 18 to 1 to top 10. So I've already made both these bets. And I talked about before where all those comparable courses I mentioned, he has had really good shows up. He is an elite ball striker and a horrific putter. If you remember the Sony Open, he was actually right there with Henley and Matsuyama. Almost said Morikawa. Hideki Matsuyama. The Honda PGA National. You could throw that in. I didn't put in. I think it's even more difficult. Ton of water. But the RBC, the John Deere, I think these are all great. I was just seeing if he actually gained on bent on, and he did not. So it doesn't matter. He broke neutral. Of course, who I'm talking about is my man, Mr. Svensson, Adam Svensson. He's also Canadian, so yeah, for sure I'm betting him. So with that said, of course, there you got Adam Hadwin strapping on the goalie. The RBC goalie helmet's pretty cool. And I don't know if I bet Adam Hadwin yet. I think I did. I think he's 45 to 1. All right, with that said, that is my preview show with a little focus on the bets. I hope that gives you some ideas of who you might want to bet. Also, who you want to play from a DFS side. If you do me the honor, as always, click that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to let me know who you think is going to win the U.S. Open if you've not done that so far. If you've not given me your winner and subscribed yet, you should do it. It's a free $100. You got pretty good odds to hit it. Typically, you get about 100 entries into the random generator that spits out. And follow me on Twitter for all my witty comments and any updates that I see come across that you guys need to know about. All right, guys. Join me tomorrow for my pick show, and I will not be having a Before the Lock show. So I'll try to incorporate a little bit of that. I'm going to actually be traveling Wednesday and be gone all week. So I'm just glad that I was able to get this done. But I will have the pick show out tomorrow, and I'll try to bring in like one and done and, you know, some of the things that I do on Before the Lock. Now, ownership projections and weather is going to be a little difficult, but I'll still do it for you. It's just, you know, I don't know how accurate it'll be because we're going to be about a day earlier than I usually do it. All right, guys, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care.